Live from San Diego, this is KUSI News.
Now joining us to give us an update on what we can expect next in a case like this is criminal defense attorney Vikas Bajaj. Vic, good to see you as always. This is a case that has really captivated the nation, especially with how long it has been progressing. The latest developments with not getting a hit in CODIS with this glove now means what?
Well, it means the next step is to go forward with forensic genetic genealogy, which, for instance, are commercial databases, private databases, not CODIS, which is singularly controlled by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So we're talking about 23andMe, Family Tree, those types of...
Which was used in the Brian Kohlberger case, right? That's how they eventually found him?
Exactly, and you can go up to 6 degrees or 6 relatives of separation, distant cousins. And so rather than looking at just specific DNA markers, you look at similarities. And what you end up doing is creating a family tree and then working backwards to try to find the suspect. I cannot believe that it's a surprise that there was not a hit. One thing that's important to note is, much like San Diego, our hometown, Tucson is very close to the Mexican border. So we're talking 60 to 70 miles, depending on which route you take from Nancy Guthrie's house. I look back to handling kidnapping cases 20+ years ago, and while there's absolutely reliable information that the victims may be out of jurisdiction in Mexico, for instance, it takes a while to get the coordination between the Republic of Mexico's authorities and law enforcement officers from the United States. I was not surprised. I think a lot of people who have their finger on the pulse of investigations and criminal kidnappings were not surprised that there is not a DNA match. While some people claim and describe the perpetrator in the video to be a clumsy person who was unsophisticated, I take a different approach. I think that person is probably anonymous in the United States and may have close ties with a neighboring country.
There are so many conspiracy theories going on social media. I don't know if that is good or bad for investigators, or if they are even paying attention to any of that. But what is your take on what we're seeing both with the investigation? Do you think it was in some way botched, as has been claimed, between local authorities there and the FBI? I mean, we've seen you know, a pool cleaner and landscaper show up to the house at this point, which people are saying, how is that even possible? This is a crime scene. What is your take on how this has been handled and the cooperation between authorities on this case?
Well, simply, we've had Federal Bureau of Investigator agents, through the rumor mill, let's say, indicate that there's been a lack of cooperation with Pima County Sheriff's Department, and there's been that sort of tug of war, which should never happen. In my opinion, when the first time we heard about this case, Lauren, my feeling was the FBI needs to get in right away, because we're talking about a hostage, a kidnapping victim, or potentially a murder victim so close to another country bordering the United States. And this is an area that you have to really look at closely. There's a lot of gravel, a lot of dirt, a lot of wind, and it's not the forensic playground that we would really depend upon for an academic exercise, let's say. So when you have helicopters flying close by, and you have investigators walking in the dark, and you have, for instance, DoorDash or Uber Eats drivers walking to the front door, one cannot help but question the investigative techniques. Now, so much time has passed, but one thing remains the same. The target of this abduction was not Nancy Guthrie. Nancy Guthrie was about as vanilla politically as you can possibly imagine. The target had to have been Savannah Guthrie. And if we believe that the perpetrator or perpetrators were sophisticated, we would also then have to believe that these individuals knew the type of notoriety that would come along with it. And so you talk about a botched investigation. Is the investigation botched? Yes, because we don't have somebody in custody, and we surely don't have Nancy Guthrie back almost 17 to 18 days later.
Okay, but Vic, let me push back. If you believe that the target was Savannah and that it was done for the notoriety, obviously you're doing that to get money, some would say. There needs to be a motive there other than just, you know, seeing it play out on national television. The family has said they are willing to pay. Why has there been no additional communication? I mean, even some of these letters are not real.
Well, looking at my crystal ball, I'll tell you my best guess, and that is that law enforcement likely did not put much stock in the ransom notes. And you talk about a botched investigation. We have to also understand we have very good federal and state investigators down the line, trickling down, who are working very hard on this. And what doesn't help is, for instance, TMZ coming out every week with a new ransom letter that's unauthenticated other than a legitimate Bitcoin address. Now, you astutely bring up the connection that a lot of people bring up, which is it had to be for the money. And I respectfully would push back on your pushback, and I would say that's an assumption we cannot make.
Okay.
We have to look clearly at Savannah Guthrie's itinerary. What was coming up? What could possibly be used to influence her, let's say, for instance? And that may be something that investigators look at and say, that's the real motive. If you look at Savannah Guthrie's statements, we are asking for proof of life, but one thing we haven't received is proof of death. So that means that Savannah Guthrie, some way, shape, or form, has confidence from what we've heard from her and seen from her that her mother has not passed.
Would you be alluding to in any way what a lot of people have speculated online, which is her connection to the Epstein investigation?
I don't know. You know, that's really for investigators to look at, and for me to pontificate about a motive would be careless and irresponsible. I think the investigators have and will and continue to look forward to what it is her importance was at this point in time and why her mother had to be abducted to potentially influence her decisions. What her decisions are or what was upcoming, I'm not privy to that, but that would be the key. Ransom notes and ransom demands, Lauren, you've covered them before. They happen in quick succession. Somebody is abducted, asported, or kidnapped, and then there's a demand right away. Pay me and I'll release.
Right.
Here you have pay me on a Thursday. Thursday comes and goes. Pay me on a Sunday, or prepare to go international. Sunday came and went. With Savannah Guthrie's statements not indicating to the listening public that her mother has indeed passed. It's beyond my pay grade to pontificate on what the investigator's doing, but I would be remiss if they did not concentrate, of course, on what the import of Savannah Guthrie is at this point in our country's history.
And, you know, it's heartbreaking. You hope that there is, you know, a good resolve at the end of this.
Yes, so, absolutely.
Vic, thank you so much for your insight. As always, just such a crazy situation, but we'll continue to follow this.
Yes, my pleasure.